All right, Shalom.
Shalom.
All right, first and foremost, we have to give all the praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh,
Yahweh.
Bahashem,
Ba'ashem.
Yahweh Shai,
Yahushai.
Bahashem,
Ba'ashem.
Rukah Kadash.
Hakadash.
All right, I have to give double honors and respect to our apostles and elders and bishops of Great Millstone who rule well and taught us this truth. Peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect, and the one third. All right, your brother Salah.
Brother, yo, what's up?
All right, and today's video topic, we're going to be covering this video here from this one Jake, uh, Eli from Africa. He could be a Jake, he could be a Hamlet, but I think he's probably a Jake, and he's featuring this fellow right here, this Ismailite professor, or I think or he could be an Israelite foreigner. You never know, but basically, right, he's talking about the fall of Babylon the Great, man, and aka America, and you basically seeing Babylon falling right now in real time because what's happening right now, man. Riots, man. Sedition among men. They're about to bring that order up kill to roll out that MOTB. Man. Jacob's trouble is basically on the way. Along with Babylon falling economically, right? With these tariffs, right? And Lord's will, this I'm gonna do this on another video, but basically, right? China or Moab, right? They're withholding precious metals, right? Right, because as soon as DJT, aka Caesar Nero, started raising up the prices or tariffs, man, on China and these other nations, well, China, right, basically holds the monopoly on rare minerals that you use for like your smartphones, your cars, your TVs, all your modern technologies today, man. And China, right? Like the Lord put the spirit on them, to invest in this, right? And now they basically hold the monopoly on it, right? Right, and now America, right, is starting to see the errors of its ways, man. Babylon's falling, right, and so we're gonna open up with two precepts, right. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 18, and we're going to start at verse 1. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth is lighted with his glory. And he cried he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through her abundance of her delicacies. Yeah, man. Babylon the Great, man. It's basically going down, right? After Caesar Nero, aka DJT, imposed these tariffs on China, right? And Lord will, I'm gonna do another video on this one, but basically, right, China or Moab, right, they basically hold the monopoly on all rare metals, or right, right, basically these rare earth metals, right, they're the metals that they export to these other countries to manufacture, like like their chips, or the stuff that you put in your smartphones, your computers, your tablets, your watches, your modern cars, man, everything, right? And now because Caesar Nero, aka DJT, right, is putting tariffs on these countries, right? China is basically saying, all right, we're not going to export these rare metals to these to your country, right? And that's basically stopping all the manufacturing for like cars, phones, and everything. And that's basically causing America's businesses and economy to go down. Why? Because they can't produce stuff without those resources. And basically China basically holds a monopoly on those resources. Be, because 90% of all rare earth metals come from China, right? Yahweh Bashim Yahshua, he put the spirit on Moab, right? Going to the scripture, and let me get this out because I'm bringing this out right now. Is my wash. All right, so this is the book of Psalms, chapter 60, verse 8, and it says here, Moab is my washpot. Over Edom, I will cast out my shoe. Philistia, triumph thou because of me. So basically, right, Yahweh Bashim Yahshua, he put the spirit on Moab, to invest in these rare earth metals, back in the 90s, right? Right, so they so yeah yeah so basically they have global economic influence on the world as they do now. Hence why a lot of stuff today has been mass produced by China and sold for cheap, right? And what that did was that put China in a high on a high global economic economic seat as far as exports go. So before I play the video right here, we're gonna read the copyright statement. Let's see if I can find that. Slovakia. All right, here it is. All right, so disclaimer, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All right, so with that out of the way, we're gonna play the video. So so Brother Alsop, if you want to watch my screen, I'm gonna share my screen. Application, this one. All right, and begin.
Society is so divided. I mean, divided in so many ways. It isn't just that the divides are deep, it's that the divides are so many. Black and white, race against race, advocates of this issue against opponents of this issue, even men against women and women against men. There isn't a single category within that society that doesn't have some corresponding nemesis. It's just divide and conquer, playing out domestically. And Democrats and Republicans is just another one of these divisions, because the country has been conquered by corporate economic imperialists. Look, I don't care who you vote for in November, because power doesn't care who you vote for in November. I've said it before. If you imagine that unelected power of the private sector is going to entrust the public with deciding how things are going to be run and who's going to run things, then you're living in a fantasy. It's absurd. America has subverted, sabotaged, and strangled democracies all around the world. They've been interfering with, tampering with, rigging elections across the globe for decades, from Haiti to Honduras, from Italy to Iran, from Syria to South Africa. They've toppled governments, assassinated elected officials, fixed elections, bribed and bullied and bulldozed democracies on every continent for a century. They don't think that any population in any country in the world can be trusted to elect leaders who will safeguard the interests of the American elite. So what makes you think that they're going to trust you with that power? They rig elections and install whoever they want in country after country, but somehow you think that they're not going to do that in your country.
Hello, brothers and sisters. I really hope you're all doing fine from wherever you are watching me from now. Shahid Bolson, the owner of the Middle Nation, he has been talking about how Africa should be great and how Africa has allowed itself to be exploited. He has been talking about how the Black Americans and the diaspora have failed to unite, and for that reason the Western system has exploited them to the fullest. So let's watch this video, then have a really quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you so much.
Well, how naive can you be? Listen, the election cycle in America is nothing but a mechanism for what you can call the campaign industrial complex, whereby billions upon billions of dollars of contributions, your money, are funneled into the private sector. I mean, when you donate to a politician or you donate to a candidate, where do you think that money goes? It goes directly to business. You're not doing anything but increase the revenue streams of consultancies, ad agencies, analytics firms, PR firms, media companies, social media companies, digital marketing agencies, events coordinators, on and on. This is nothing but the public providing basically an economic stimulus package to unproductive industries. It's a wealth transfer that you yourselves are participating in. You're literally just donating money to the private sector and getting nothing in return. Getting nothing in return except that you get to watch the most expensive fan fiction movie about democracy ever produced. I mean, look at the Democrats. Kamala Harris was just appointed as the nominee. She wasn't voted for. This is straight up succession, not election. There were no primaries. She hasn't had to outline her policy platform, and no one needs her to do that. All she has to do is to not be Donald Trump. This is the logic of demonization versus policy debate as a campaign strategy. no candidate has to win your approval as long as the whole election is framed in the lesser of two evils scenario. And what's the point of that? To make the pre-programmed win seem plausible, that's all. And to not leave any opening for dissent to manifest that might make the win seem implausible. Because, for instance, if voters actually have demands of this candidate or that candidate, and the candidate fails to address those demands, then it could cast doubt upon their eventual victory. And inevitably, if a candidate does address voter demands, well, that will always end up alienating some other faction of voters. So we don't talk about issues. We don't talk about how to deal with issues. We just rally behind our party's candidate in lockstep because the other party's candidate is literally the devil incarnate. When you're operating in the lesser of two evils framework, you're always going to have decidedly low expectations of your chosen candidate, and that's perfect when the election is already fraudulent in the first place. So this uncomplicates the rigging process. Yes, I said rigging, and don't think for a second, don't you imagine that that's a conspiracy theory, that the U.S. rigs elections. But between 1946 and 2000, America is documented to have interfered with, tampered with, malignly influenced, or outright rigged at least 88 elections from Europe to Latin America to Asia to Africa. So again, if you think that they'll do this everywhere else, but your so-called democracy is pristine, I would have to ask you why you think so. Why would it be more important to the power structure to control the outcome of an election in, say, Guyana, than it would be for them to control the outcome of an election in the United States of America? Because yes, Guyana is one of the countries where America rigged elections in the past. I'm telling you, I don't care who you vote for, because power doesn't care who you vote for, because the outcome is not determined by you. You know, Biden stepped aside because his pre-programmed victory could never be convincing. But look, Biden himself, the fact of Biden, a man who is literally in late-stage senility, a man who is visibly disintegrating before our eyes, the very fact that he was not only president, but was absolutely going to be run for another term, despite being a cadaver on strings, that should let you know that power does not reside in that office. Politicians serve two functions. The first is to distract you with the performance of democratic government, and the second is to be effigies that can be burned to satisfy public anger when the policies dictated by the private sector impose misery on the population. So when an American asks me who should they vote for, or when they say that this one is better than that one, or at least not as bad as that one, and what do I think, and so on and so on and so on, well, you may as well be asking me about which Marvel superhero is better than the other, because you're not talking to me about figures who have any real significance with regards to policy.
And before I continue playing the video, so basically as what Shahid I believe, Shahid Bolson, yeah yeah so basically, right, Shahid Bolson, and he's basically saying that it is basically useless. To invest in American politics, because at the end of the day, man, it's all about who's selected, right? What they are is putting on a show, and that's why they do the lesser of two evils, right? And to restate what he said, is to make the next selected president, look more plausible versus the other one who's literally who they literally demonize on camera or the public stage here in Babylon, to make their selection look plausible to to the masses, right? So there wouldn't be any what's it called, so the masses wouldn't collectively question the presidency, even though the president doesn't hold any true power. They're literally puppets to these wicked elites, right? Right. These wicked elites. These elite banking families. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Oppenheimers, Dubois, and Giddies. As the apostles and elders have been constantly saying, right? So let's get a couple of precepts before we continue. Let's see. All right. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 31, starting at verse 1. It says here, "Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai." Yeah, man. For all these jakes, right. That aren't getting the truth. That still think that voting does something, man. Those people are completely lost, man. I mean, and eventually they're gonna see the hatred that Esau has for Jake, and you're starting to see that right now with these riots, right? They're allowing these riots, that order up kill, so they can come down, so they can eventually come down with martial law, right? Right, and it's not just L.A. now; it's now South Carolina, and if you're not mistaken, it's going to happen all across Babylon the Great, right? They're getting ready to come down with that hammer and throw a lot of jakes, into them internment camps, right, into them concentration camps, in Guantanamo Bay. What's this? What's that one island? That was a prison. I can't think of it right now, but yeah, they're having all these prison houses built, built up, and they plan to throw Jake in them, right? Right, because
Was it
Jake.
was it Rikers Island, brother?
So Slocky said again.
Rikers Island.
Yeah, I think it's Rikers Island.
Yep.
Oh, Alcatraz,
In New York,
Alcatraz.
yeah.
Yeah,
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 Guantanamo Bay, all those.
yeah, man. So best believe that Caesar New aka DJT, he's gonna throw you Jakes in there, and you know what? Some of the they're gonna be thrown there, but ultimately, man, they're gonna be saved by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. They're gonna be the first ones to get beaten up in that chariot. So so let's get the precept. Let's get the blue letter. Okay, Book of Revelation 12 verse 12 says, "Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell dwell in, dwell in them. Woe unto okay, let me read this again. Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth he hath but a short time." Right, and Esau knows he has a short time in rulership. That's why he's trying to move fast, man. Because he knows that day of judgment is coming unto them, right? Right. So we're gonna continue playing the video.
You're not talking to me about figures who actually exert any control over anything. You're not talking about the real existing power structure. You're asking me to give you an opinion about a fictional scenario in which your government wields independent power. As long as you're fixated on this charade, there's no danger whatsoever of you ever having any impact on policy. You're just facilitating and collaborating with the divide and conquer tactics of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. And I don't know how you can be so propagandized, to be honest. I don't know how you can be so propagandized that you can't even notice that actually your own media does tell you every day that the government is not in charge. I mean, how many times have you read or how many times have you heard in the media, the
Yeah,
market will decide?
yeah, and it just goes to show you how stupid the average Babylonian is.
We'll have to see what the market does and so on. But when they say the market, they don't mean you and I, they mean big business. Multinational corporations, asset managers, stock market whales, not voters, not citizens, not Democrats, and not Republicans. You live in an oligarchy, and your so-called democracy is only performed as a distraction to keep you from noticing that fact.
All right, now before we continue, let's Google what oligarchy means. Define
Oligarchy.
oligarchy: a small group of people having control of a country, organization, or institution. Right, from the Greek oligoi, few. Greek archin, to rule. Oligarchin, oligarchy, an oligarch. Right. So a select few. And that's how I know they're being run by these wicked elites. You know, these wicked elite banking families, right? Is because they're the ones that have control over these small corporations that's running Babylon the Great. It's these corporations that actually have that actually have true control of what's taking place. These people in high positions, right? Right, and the presidency, right? They're basically they're basically just a scapegoat, you know. For the average Babylonian, for them to have the point a finger to. So but but these people are starting to figure out now because the truth is being set forth. So but let's go into AI mode to see what oligarchy is. So all right, small group of government concentrated in the hands of a small group of individuals or families rather than being held by a population as a whole. Right. So America is an oligarchy. It is not. It was never a democracy. That's why the scripture says, right. He, two horns spake as a lamb. All right, so this is the book of Revelation, chapter 13, starting at 11. It says here, "And I beheld another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and spake as a dragon. And he exercised all the powers of the first beast before him, and causes all the earth that dwell in them to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed." Right, and that's talking. And that's how we know he's talking about Babylon, right? Because them two horns, they represent what Babylon's two-party system, right? And them speaking as a lamb, showing that oh, we're a democracy, but or two horns like a lamb basically shows that, oh, look, there's a democracy. It's like people have a choice, but really they speak as a dragon because only a select few dictate what's actually going on in America, right? They're the people that have control, over all the resources, right? Your stores, your store, your grocery stores, every store that sells products, and including like your media, like the news and TV and movies and all that. They basically shape the way these people think and act, right? Right. That's why that's why these JOOH people call them goyim, which in their, and which they think is cattle, but goyim, if I'm not mistaken, and if I can remember what goy actually means. Oh yeah, Thawadi al Bashim al Shai. The word goy actually means nations, and but basically the bottom line is like these wicked elites, right? They know that they could actually control the behavior of the masses, right? That's why in 2011, that's why they had that 911 incident where those three buildings collapsed and instilled the Patriot Act, where they could basically have surveillance and spy on everyone, right? Right, because so they could monitor the behavior, monitor how these people think and act, right? Right, and that's all leading up to what their MOTB. If you read down Revelation chapter 13, 16 on down, right? I'm not gonna read it because you brothers and few sisters should know it by now. Now Job 9:24, and we know what that is. The earth has been given unto the wicked; they covereth the faces and judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Right, and we know that's speaking about who, Esau, Edom, because in the book of Malachi chapter 1 verse 4, it says, all right, Job 9:24. The earth has been given to the hand of the wicked. He covered the face and judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? And the word wicked goes into Esau, right? Because Malachi 1:4 said, "Whereas Edom saith, if we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Sabaoth, meaning his armies. They shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call themselves the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord Yahweh Shai had the indignation forever. So yeah, that's basically a clear cut for you people, for you peons right there that ask, oh, why you always gotta talk about Esau? Because the Lord has indignation over Esau forever, and he's the one that's in rulership right now. That's why we gotta keep constantly covering his ass. Yes, and about the Al want to bring up, jumping back to Job 9, going at verse 26. They are passed away as the swift as swift. They are passed away as the swift ships, as the eagle that hastens to the prey. Right, and that's right. And we were brought over to Babylon the Great. Right, the southern kingdom, from the west coast of Africa, were brought over. Were brought over, the so-called Negroes were brought over to America on ships, right? And they say swift as the eagle, right? Because their spiritual animal is the eagle, and them having that eagle goes all the way back to them when they were in Mount Seir, or what is known as modern day Petra. It was passed down from Mount Seir to Greece to Rome, and now here in Babylon the Great, America, whose deadly wound was healed, after the Dark Ages, after that 1,000 years, you know. But going back to the video, we're going to continue playing.
Now, for this election in the U.S., as I've said, Harris and Trump are just mascots representing two different factions of the OCGFC. And it's going to be just like what happened in Venezuela. The only way that Trump can win is by trying to out-rig the election rigging of the Democrats. But the Democrats are the incumbents, like Maduro was. So they have the advantage of overseeing the succession, and Harris is likely to win. The only thing that Trump can do is to try to boost his own popularity to the point that Harris's pre-programmed victory looks less plausible. But like I said before, it's not musical chairs where both candidates are walking in circles around the chair until the music stops, and then they have to race for the seat. Kamala is already in the seat, just like Maduro, and it's harder to get someone out of that seat than it is to just sit in it. So it looks like the neocons will probably stay in the White House. And that just means that the real battle between the military-industrial complex OCGFC and the global-oriented OCGFC, that battle is just going to go on a while longer. But if you're fool enough to think that you have to drop everything in order to ensure that Kamala Harris will win and Trump will lose, well, then you're literally like someone who can watch those old Roadrunner cartoons and still get worried and anxious about whether or not the coyote is going to catch him. I mean, I know it's important for you to think that you have some kind of control, but the truth is, the reality is, you're not writing this story, and you're not writing how this story goes. And as long as you think that you are writing how this story goes or participating in it in any way whatsoever, then that just ensures that you will always be nothing but a spectator. Unless and until you redirect your activism towards the private sector, and I mean organize and mobilize with the understanding that, for example, corporations are political entities. So treat them as such, deal with them as such, impose expectations and demands upon them as such. Unless and until you do that, all your get out the vote initiatives, all your campaigning, all your voting will never do anything for social and political change except that. But that's not the case with you. Even though you're trying to impose your value system all around the world, when things become difficult in your own societies, you abandon your principles, you abandon your values. They're insufficient for preserving the security and the stability and the tranquility of your societies. They're insufficient. They're inadequate for that. So that alone, along with many, many other things, that alone shows me the inferiority of your value system, the inferiority of your belief system, and the superiority of Islam. And your belief system, your enlightenment value.
P.S. We do not support Islam in any way, shape, or form. That is idolatry. That is a false religion. And Shahid Bolson just brings that up because he's a so-called Ishmaelite or he believes in Islam or whatever. But his points against Babylon still stands.
Values are extremely selectively applied in your society throughout your history. They apply to some people and not others. It's like in George Orwell's Animal Farm. Some people are more equal than others in your society. Your value system is not evenly applied. I mean, there's obvious examples everyone knows about. But just look at democracy, for example. You want democracy all around the world, supposedly. You say that you want democracy all around the world, so-called. But you don't even apply democracy let's just for the sake of argument, let's pretend that you have a democratic system in the United States, and it's an actually healthy, functioning democratic system, which is obviously not the case. But let's just, for the sake of argument, pretend that it is. You don't believe that democracy is important, for example, in the private sector. You don't believe that businesses, that companies, that corporations should be democratic. Your belief in the supremacy of democracy does not extend to the private sector. Corporations don't have to be democratic, do they? In fact, corporations are sacrosanct. It's sacrilegious to say that there should be any intervention in the private sector to make it actually accountable to the population, accountable to the public, accountable to the workers. And anyone who even talks about something like that, anyone who even suggests that companies and corporations should be democratic, will be persecuted. I mean, look at the struggle that organized labor had in the United States. Coal miners were literally bombed from the sky when they tried to organize and have and secure their rights and have some kind of democratic representation with the coal companies. When just now, when the railway workers were wanting to strike for better wages, for more humane working conditions, more rational and reasonable and fair workloads that would actually help to guarantee the safety of those trains, Joe Biden and the government prohibited them from striking. Where's the democracy? Because you don't mean the things that you say. You don't mean the values that you espouse. You don't mean it. If you meant it, then you would apply it across the board. You would apply it to everybody in all institutions and all dimensions of your society. It would be applied everywhere, but it's not. Democracy doesn't belong in the workplace. Democracy doesn't belong in the company, in the business, in the corporation. And no one's even supposed to suggest that it should. That's an inferior belief system. It's inadequate. It's inadequate for building a civilization, for building a cohesive society. Because look, the only group identity, the only sort of group identity that makes any sense at all, it's not racial, it's not ethnic, it's not nationalistic, not even based on language or shared culture or shared heritage. None of that makes any sense as a shared group identity. The only thing that makes sense is shared belief system. That's the only thing that makes sense as a group identity from which you can build cohesion and camaraderie.
Okay, so we're basically gonna stop right there, cause he's got it going off, but yeah, man, basically right, Babylon the Great, they basically went around the world, trying to impose their beliefs, and or try to enforce, their way, hence, as Elder Malcolm always says, they come in, they say democracy, they scream democracy, and then you know, and then throw a fucking grenade. Actually, I don't exactly remember how he says it, but or they say grenade or democracy, and then throws a grenade. But yeah, man, they come in, they take people's resources and enforce their way of life. But that eventually, is also taking a toll on the people's country, right? Because now they're suffering, economically, because all that spending is going to is going to the war, hence, which goes back to Esau, living by the sword, right? Right, and that takes me to the scripture. All right, so this is the book of Sirach, chapter or Ecclesiastes chapter 14, verse 5. It says, "He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods." And that's what you're seeing right now. He's even being wicked to his own people, man. you know, enforcing his strict draconian policies, right? Right. So, basically that's why you're having these riots happening right now, right? Right, because not only are they detaining Jake, the northern and southern kingdom, but they're also detaining their own people that want to go up against that want to go up against their agenda, right? And and if you bear with me one moment, right? I actually sent you brother else up a video of other Edomites, you know, of other Edomites attacking the police, in retaliation to to ice snatching up people, because these Babylonians know that's going against their constitutional rights, right? So Esau, man, they're completely divided, man. Babylon is basically fucking through. All right, if I can get that video, Salakia.
What's that verse, brother? A house divided against itself. Roughly paraphrasing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what scripture you're talking about. Let me bear with
Which-
me. Bear with
Yeah.
me. That's the scripture of Satan. If Satan cast out Satan. All right, so I'm gonna share these videos, so we can watch them on. All right, here they are. So, the Wadi Al Bashim Al Shai. All right, all right. So we're gonna get this precept out. Copy the whole scripture. I didn't mean to do that. Mar 3 verse 25. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Well, actually, let's go all the way up. Mar chapter 3 verse 23. Or no 24. No, not. Actually, yeah. It's Mark chapter 3 verse 23. It says here, and he called unto them, and said unto them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. If Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. And that's Yahweh Shai, speaking in the red letter, prophesying the downfall of Esau, Edom, right? Because Yahweh Shai said, actually, I beheld. This is Luke chapter 10, verse 18. And Yahushua said, and he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven, meaning what? He's fallen from rulership, not the not the Roman Catholic version of there was a battle in heaven and God threw Satan out of heaven because he was being rebellious. No, none of that. It's talking about Esau falling out of rulership, man. And that's what heaven's talking about. It's his rulership, his position that he's in. He's in his heaven. We're in our hell. Oh, meaning we're in a low state right now. As Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and you Israelite foreigners, you speckled birds that look like the other nations, but your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're in our hell right now because we gotta serve these other nations, man. Chiefly Esau, right? Right? And these videos I'm about to show you, man, we're showing you, man, Esau, man. These people are completely divided, man. We're witnessing the downfall of these people. Yeah, man. You see Esau. You also see Jake and the other heathens right there. But yeah, man. You see Esau going up against these ICE detainees, man, or these ICE detainers. Rather, like Esau's completely through, man. They are a house divided. All right, and I'm gonna show you one more video. Oh, we gotta open up Instagram for this video, Slovakia. Yeah, but yeah, man, it's basically Esau throwing Edomites and and of course Jake and these other heathens sprinkled among them, man. Throwing bricks at those cop cars in Los Angeles, man. So yeah, man, Esau's completely through, right? So we're gonna close off with this scripture. So we're going to read the book of Sirach, chapter 25, verse 7. And it says here, there be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that hath joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy. And that's what we're seeing right now happening in real time. We are seeing the fall, the downfall of Esau, Edom, right? The so-called white man and woman. Again, obviously not all of them, but the ones that descend from the line of Esau, right? Because some of our people look like Edomites and the other nations will look like so-called white people, right? It's not about phenotype or skin color. It's about seed line lineage, right? So with that, hope the video's been edifying, right? And to you Akim and you few Aquath out there that may be watching and learning. And with that, we have to say, Kal Halayim La, Abanawa, Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Ba Hashem,
Bahashem,
Yahweh
Yahweh
Shai,
Shai,
Ba Hashem,
Bahashem,
Rukaha Kadash.
Rakakadash.
All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders and bishops of Great Millstone who rule well and taught us this truth. Peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, both elected in 1/3. All right, your brother Salah.
It's a brother Yahweh.
And with that, we'd like to say, Shalom.
Shalom.